Hello again, this is Mrs. Mallet, and I decided to do a part 1 and part 2 of negative exponents because these really can be a little bit tricky. So let's do some more examples. Let's say that I have 5 over y to the negative 7. Now remember, when you have negative exponents, I like to call them elevator exponents because they're always moving, and you only move the negative exponent. So now in this case, what's going to move? The y to the negative 7. And where is it going to go? It's going to go up top. So that's the only thing that's moving is the y to the negative 7. So now you're going to have 5 y to the 7. Remember, when you move negative exponents, once you move them, they change signs and now become positive. Okay, so let's try this one. Let's say I have z over z to the negative 4. Okay, so once again, what's going to end up moving? The z to the negative 4. And where is it going to go? It's going to go up top. So now I have z times z to the 4. And so now what is that? Use your product rule. Remember, you have this like basis, you add your exponents. So this will be z to the 5th power. Okay, let's try one that's a little bit more harder. Let's say that I have, everybody loves fractions. So let's say that I have 4 over 7, and I'm raising that to the negative 3rd power. Okay, so let's use our power of a quotient rule. Everything on the inside is going to get that exponent on the outside. So now this will be 4 to the negative 3rd over 7 to the negative 3rd. Okay, so then what do we do next? You're right. We flip them because they're both negative. So now this will be 7 to the 3rd power over 4 to the 3rd power. And you could expand that out and tell me what that is, but for right now, just leave it like that. We're gonna have big numbers, so we'll just leave it like that. Okay, let's get a little bit more complicated. Okay, so let's say that I have 5x to the 8 over y squared, and I'm raising all of this. Let's make that a negative 8. And I'm raising all this to the negative 2. So we're going to make that a negative 8 instead of a positive 8. Okay, so everything on the inside is going to get that exponent. So now I'm going to have 5 to the negative 2. X to the, when you have a power raised to a power, you multiply. So x to the positive 16 over y to the negative 4. Alright, so now let's look at this. And once again, you only want to move your negative exponent. So the only two things that are moving is the 5 to the negative 2, that's going to go on the bottom, and the y to the negative 4, that's going to go up top. So now what we have is x to the 16th, y to the positive 4, over 5 to the positive 2. And now let's go ahead and simplify 5 squared, because we know what that is. That's 25. So now we have, and I'm going to rewrite it right here, x to the 16, y to the 4 over 25. That's our final answer right there. You want to try one that's a little bit more complicated? Okay, here we go. 6 to the negative 2, x to the negative 4, y to the negative 7, over 6 to the negative 3rd, x to the positive 3, and y to the negative 9. Now I'm going to show you this in two ways. The first thing you can do is actually, if you wanted to apply your quotient rule, which states that you can subtract your exponents, you can do that. That's totally fine. But make sure you keep in mind that when you're subtracting, like if you wanted to apply the quotient rule for the y's, it's going to be negative 7 minus negative 9. So if you want to apply the quotient rule, make sure you apply it's minus the negative number or minus the number. I like to just go ahead and move stuff, so that's the way we're going to do that one today. So now let's look at this. What's going to come on the bottom and what's going to come on the top? Okay, well, let's look at the top. The 6 to the negative 2 is going to go to the bottom. The x to the negative 4 is going to go on the bottom. And remember, once you move them, they become positive. The y to the negative 7 is also going to go on the bottom and become positive. What's going to move up top? The 6 to the positive 3 will stay up top. Now your x to the 3rd, that's not a negative, so we don't move it. We leave it on the bottom. And then your y to the negative 9 is going to go on top. So now let's apply our quotient rule and do this. So I have 6 to the 3rd minus 6 squared is just 1 6. Now let's do our y's. We have y to the 9th and y to the 7th. That leaves you with y squared. Now, we've already done that, and we've already done that. Now what do we have left? We have x to the 4th and x to the 3rd. And remember, you add your exponent, so on the bottom we have x to the 7th. So your final answer is 6y squared over x to the 7th.